Hey, Scott, how are you?
Devin, I'm great, man. Thank you for the platform again.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you back on a second time. It's been almost a year since your first episode, and now there's a third book, second book in the Mess series, which I
Right?
can't wait to talk about today. But man, I am just super stoked for the time that we're going to spend here today.
I am as well. Your audience can only handle me once a year, right?
No,
And
we
my
have.
wife. And my wife.
You can't have enough, Scott. You can't have enough, Scott. And for those of you who are tuning in right now, this is Scott Jeffrey Miller. And if you don't know his story or background, you can go back and listen to the first episode from last June that we did together. But Scott, oh my gosh, so much has changed in a year. You've been through a move, you've been through some career things, you have a brand new book that's coming out that I'm excited to talk about. How's it been going?
It's going great. Doesn't everybody quit their 25-year-long, seven-figure job in the middle of a pandemic and launch out on your own? I mean, I took a huge chance. I disrupted myself, like I teach in all my books, and I left FranklinCovey formally after 25 years. I'm still advising them and hosting their podcast, but I'm launching my own thought leadership and speaking and writing. And it's people like you that are lending me your reputation, your credibility, giving me a chance to speak to your audience. I'm honored and I appreciate your confidence in me, truly.
I am so excited for this new step in your journey. And FranklinCovey is a fantastic company.
Yeah.
I've loved learning from them and working with them in different capacities for the last 20 years. And I know you have a lot of rich history there, and you talk very, very well about them in all of your works.
Of course.
I got to be like, I just have to share something, because for those of you who watched the first episode, you know that Scott and I like to laugh. And I was reading through your book, and there were several times, when I say your book, I'm talking about Marketing Mess to Brand Success, which is coming out here in May 11th. And you have to get your hands on this book, because there were several times that I was laughing out loud audibly. I swear a couple times, little peeking out. I mean, it was that funny, right? It was like thought leadership meets stand-up comedy. It was one of the most enjoyable books that I've read.
Oh, thanks.
I love how short, direct, and to the point you are, and how you just inject so much of your humor and your natural persona, I'm going to use that word, in your book, which is so good.
I appreciate it. My books are not built to last and good to great. And all homage to my friend, and he is Jim Collins. My books are easy. They're breezy. They're life experiences. I don't think there's a piece of data in the entire book. It's just not my jam. I like to talk about what I screwed up, why I thought that, why I did that, what I learned from it, and then offer it up on a platter for you to say, okay, I'm going to steer clear of that pothole, that mess. And so my entire series is Mess to Success. My next book is Job Mess to Career Success, right? So I like to own my mess. I actually enjoy talking about the mistakes that I made, sometimes horrifyingly, and then teaching through them. Because I believe that we all have messes, and when you own your mess as a leader, whether you're a C-suite leader, a frontline leader, a marketing leader, entrepreneur, when you own your mess, Davin, you make it safe for others to own theirs. And I want to relate to my leader. I want leaders to relate to me. And so the book isn't gratuitous in terms of all my messes. I got to save some for the next book. But this is really 30 challenges that everyone's going to face in marketing, whether you are a marketer, you're a CMO, a director of marketing, or you are, wearing 4 hats in a company and marketing is part of that. It's not meant to be all things marketing. It really is around kind of a leadership book applied to marketing, I think is what it is.
That's exactly right. And it is. And you said that in there, that this was as much as a leadership book as it was a marketing book. And it really is, because it's thought leadership, it's team leadership, it's organizational leadership, all wrapped in a fantastic package of, your successes, your screw ups, your messages, the stories that are in there. And I love even the first flow of your first 3 Mess to Series books, if you think about it. So you have management mess, then marketing mess, and then you're going to have job mess. And so you're really addressing all levels of every organization. There's something for everybody. It's really, really great. But here is what I love about this is I love how you take something and you just make it so relatable. In the beginning in the early pages of Marketing Mess, you talk about your early marketing careers. And someone actually told you and said, Scott, you know nothing, right?
He said that.
And it reminded me of the time that when I was interviewing Ken Blanchard on this platform, and he said he actually had a professor that told him he was a terrible writer, and he wrote, and then Blanchard ends up writing 60 books. You know what I mean? So I love that someone told you, chief marketing officer, that you know nothing about marketing, and then you write this gem, which quite frankly is an incredible handbook to successful marketing.
I appreciate it. You know, you got to own your mess. The more you put yourself out there, the more going to have criticism. So it's all coming my way. It's okay, right? My kids still think I'm cool. My wife still tolerates me. But you're right. That was someone who fashioned themselves as an expert in marketing and like was reporting to me. And literally in front of 3 of his colleagues that also reported to me, stood up and said, "You know nothing about marketing." I'm like, well, that's a little harsh. I think I must know something about it. I am the CMO of a public company, and the CEO could fire me tomorrow if he wanted to. So, but I opened with that because not everybody knows everything about everything, right? And if they do, run from them. And the more people will share with you their mistakes, I bet you the odds are they have more successes than they do failures. They're just willing to teach through their mistakes, their messes, because they're confident, they're humble, they're vulnerable. And I'm trying my best to channel those 3 competencies as I become a better author. Not a good author, just better each time, hopefully.
Better each time. And you know what? That's something else you said in your book is more is not better, better is better. Yeah. And you talk, and you, every time that I read content of yours, whether it's written, whether it's on social media, it's in your books, you do, I mean, it's amazing, right? Sharpen the saw, right? So you are sharpening yourself as you're doing that. And it comes through very genuinely. And I love the vulnerability in which you write. You talked about owning our messes. You talk about bruising hard and healing fast. Which is something I think that we all really need to do. You talk about checking our pride and pivoting when we need to. And I think right now, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, they struggle with that. They struggle with vulnerability. They struggle with being their authentic selves, especially in the marketing world. One screw up could be, you know, detrimental to your personal brand or to your company. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, what were your thoughts as you kind of approach your book from this message of vulnerability, and particularly that message around, you know, bruise hard, healed fast, you know, feel free to own that mess, make those mistakes, know when to check your pride and know when to pivot.
There's a lot wrapped in there. Let me see if I can tackle most of that. I appreciate your passion about my work too. I hope to provide the same spotlight to you when I'm able to. You know, I wrote this book as the chief marketing officer of this global public company after I stepped away from that role on my own volition. And I wrote it as much, Davin, for sales leaders as I did marketing leaders. I think actually the book will be as appreciated by the sales side as it is the leadership side, because as you know from reading it, I harp a bit on marketing and people that hide in marketing because they're fearful of owning a revenue number or, you know, having their marketing initiatives tied to revenue and sales. You can't deposit brand equity in the bank. You can't staple brand equity to the back of your deposit slip and fund payroll. Marketers have got to own sales, just like sales does. So for this one, you know, bruise hard and heal fast is a lesson you'll learn because everyone's got an opinion on marketing. You know, nobody's got an opinion on accounting and their third quarter close process. No one's got an opinion on IT's server cloud selection. I'm not sure anyone knows what the cloud is. Everyone's got an opinion on marketing. Everybody's a marketer. So when you are in marketing, you got to bruise hard and heal fast. There's going to be campaigns that don't rise to the level you thought they would. You think it's a genius idea. Your CEO thinks it's an idiotic idea. And I share some stories in there around how I had a pretty good track record and I brought a painstakingly what I thought was a ticked and tied campaign to the CEO. And he says, yeah, I don't think you've missed it. Or I don't think you've made it here. You've missed it. Back to the drawing board. I wanted to strangle him. But like all things, when you manage your own brand and you think long-term, you don't die on every sword. Last time I checked, you can only die on one sword. So pick that sword carefully. Ooh. And I think like in marketing, in all careers, too often we win the battle and don't win the war. Meaning you win the battle as in you convince the stakeholders that this campaign is going to be great. But you lose the war, which is your reputation, your ability to think nimbly and agile, your ability to turn on a dime and bruise hard and heal fast. That everyone, whether you're in marketing, whatever your career is, don't focus on winning the war, meaning the issue at hand, the project at hand, your idea. Focus on winning the battle. Focus on winning the war, which is your reputation, your invitation back to the next brainstorming meeting, because you're viewed as being collaborative and focused and nimble. You don't go down with the ship on every idea. I saw too many leaders in the FranklinCovey Company win the battle but lose the war because the CEO would acquiesce, and they were never back in the C-suite again because he didn't find them to be a valuable collaborative thinker and nimble thinker. So you mentioned more is not better, better is better, right? This is an adage that we're all facing right now. I think, and this isn't profound, it's just what you already know, I'm just saying it over again, is the people that survive and thrive and crush it in this post-pandemic economy are going to be those who are the most flexible. Those who can leave their old entrenched paradigms behind and change a new way. And I'm reminded of it every day. I walk down the street in a mask, right? And I walk into a restaurant and the waiters have gloves on, and I'm thinking, wow, the world has changed forever. Yes, some things will go back to being the same. There'll be conferences again, there'll be conventions and trade shows, but the people that can turn on the dime and be the most flexible will be those who are crush it, and those who focus on quality, not quantity. This is a huge mess for me. One of the challenges in the book is more is not better, better is better. And this is a challenge for me, right? I got 4 books out in the last 2 years. I have 3 books coming out this year. I host a podcast, the world's largest leadership podcast. I write an article for Inc. magazine. I got 3 kids and that, and I'm moving and buying. And quite frankly, a lot of it's B quality. Now, of course, this book is A+ quality, but everything else is B quality, meaning I don't want to be a hypocrite. I just want to be authentic to say I struggle with more is not better, better is better. My friend Brendan Bouchard, of course, and wrote the book High Performance Habits. He popularized this idea called PQO, prolific quality output. And he himself, after he left the consulting company and built his own brand, spent a year kind of bouncing around with activity. Should I write? Should I speak? Should I blog? Should I do online training? And he found himself after a year kind of nowhere. And so he really reoriented his mindset to this concept of more is not better, better is better. Resist that temptation to produce, unremarkable content that isn't differentiated from the masses, and get really focused, as Seth Godin would say, on your smallest viable market, not your largest viable market, not trying to boil the ocean, but who am I really speaking to? And can I write? Can I read? Can I speak? Can I deliver, create, innovate something worthwhile to them? It's counterintuitive, but it's what will differentiate the truly successful from the moderately successful.
That's so very good. And your message that you just shared now and your message that you shared in the book was just as I shared a lot about, obviously, the humor that's in the book, but I was just as much convicted as I was entertained in reading the book. In fact, one of the things that ties to the challenge that you just talked about was I have a habit of that you called out in the book of saying these very words way too often. Hey, what if we were to do this, right? And immediately everyone's like, squirrel moment, this and that. I mean, I do it in almost every single meeting. Guys, I got a great idea. What if we do this? And I actually said to Lisa, who we talked to earlier before we jumped on this cast, I said, you got to read this, Lisa. And I actually read that chapter to her, and she's like, wait, like, are you reading about yourself here? Because I do that. It's so true. We really need to hone in. And a lot of people right now are probably saying, and this is the Finding Purpose LiveCast, right? What does any of this has to do with marketing and all of that and honing in on your most viable market and all of those things? Here's one of the observations that I've had in what I've called the purpose space is that purpose is in vogue, and they don't have a lot of clarity in that. And they have a way of articulating who they are and what they do in a very messy way. And what I love is that your book is a guidebook to get out of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes one of my favorite things that you shared in the book where I laughed, I seriously, I cried, was the story of when you were sitting in your homeowners association meeting and they brought in a brand expert and they described your town as a French garden that smelled like lavender with Bordeaux and baguettes. I mean, you got to share on that. You got to share on that.
Oh,
And
the
then,
story is I lived in a fairly exclusive gated community up in Park City, and they had an HOA meeting, and the community was aging. Like, the average billionaire, which I was not, was like 70, right? And the other communities in town were kind of kicking their butt. I mean, people wanted to move to Park City to bike and swim and hike and run and that kind of stuff. And we had a sort of a staid image and such. They hired a branding company to come in. I thought it was kind of cool, right? They changed agents for selling lots, realtors. And so they hired a branding agent. I thought, oh, this is going to be cool, right? I love the fact that they're going to apply personas to a community, country club community. We since have moved there because we can't afford it. And, they brought in this agency, and they likened our agency. They showed photographs of like this sort of vintage French bicycle with a basket on the front and a bottle of Bordeaux and a baguette and a countryside and like Provence. And I'm like, what the F does that have to do with a community in Park City? I mean, like, I didn't even been to Provence. And so I raised my hand, and literally you could hear the chairs backing away from the table. It was like, oh crap, Miller's got something to say. So I kind of raised my hand. I called him out. But what's interesting is you could see, again, I was the least, my net worth was the lowest in the community by 2 commas. And you could see the older, wiser sages, the men and the women from front, kind of turn around. And they're like, who is that? Maybe we should listen to him, right? And you could see the older they were, the more they were like, he may have something to this, right? But the point is whether you're marketing or not, everything that you think about should be grounded in facts and reality. It means you can't have a vision. I mean, you can't have aspirations. But the aspirations that come true are those people who have a path, right? Who research it, understand what is first, what is second, what is third. There's no such thing as overnight success. There's overnight fame. There's no such thing as overnight success. And I write about this also in the book. From everybody that I interview, all these major celebrities, you only see the turning point. You don't see the 100 pilots that got shot that never were aired. You don't see the books they wrote that were never purchased by a publisher. There is a direct correlation, and the thousands or hundreds of things that you don't see with the 1 or 2 you do see. It's a commonality in every successful person I know.
That is so good, because there's a lot of people right now that they're chasing, quite frankly, overnight success. And like you said, there is no such thing. There's overnight fame, but there's not.
Yeah, there's overnight fame. Ask Lorena Bobbitt, right? I mean, from the 90s, she had some overnight fame, but there's no such thing as overnight success.
And now those of you listening understand why I say his book is just as much a thought leadership book as it is a stand-up comedy.
So people are Googling who's Lorena Bobbitt. Brace yourself. Or better yet, Google John Bobbitt and really brace yourself.
Just don't click on images. Don't click on images.
Yeah. His early years, not his later years.
That's so good. One of the things I want you to share on, which I thought was really, really good. I'm still marveled at how you've turned out basically 5 years in a 2-year time frame. I'm working on my second one, as you know, and I wrote a chapter in the second book, and the chapter is called Competition is the Thief of Collaboration. And one of the stories that you shared, and don't get me wrong, competition is very healthy. There is such a great thing as healthy competition, but often we tend to approach competition wrongly and rob ourselves of opportunities to collaborate that can offer a lot to our brand, offer ways for us to deliver on our purpose in other ways that we would not be able to. And you told an amazing story about how you befriended someone in the tech space who normally would have been considered the competition, and how that added value to your relationship, your friendship, and ultimately to the Covey brand, and what that looked like. Talk to us a little bit about this balance of competition and collaboration in the marketing space.
The challenge is called Friend Your Competition. Let me segue. One of the main reasons I married my wife 12 years ago was because when she was starting to date me, she was ending a relationship with somebody else. I didn't know that exactly. We met at the gym, and they've been dating for 4 or 5 years. And one of the reasons why I married her was because I liked the way she treated her now ex-boyfriend. There was no disparagement. There was no gossip. There was never even a harsh word. There was a bit of a rough breakup. And I thought, see, that's how she treats people. She's loyal to the absent. She doesn't disparage people. And I thought it was a value that she had, that I thought she does, that I really liked in her. It's a segue. But I think the point of the chapter is, a leadership sales competency in the 80s and 90s was to trash your competition. You positioned your product based on the weaknesses of your competition. You dressed them down, which I think is pitiful. Your product should not have to stand on its own against the deficiencies of your competition. You should probably know what they do. But if you want to be a trusted advisor to someone and have a relationship that is, can you hear this sound? I have some people drilling up top of my stairs. I apologize.
It's all good.
I think when you can sell your competitor's product to your customer, that's your finest day, because then you've convinced your client that you have their best interest in mind, not your own best interest in mind, that you're thinking about them long term, that they're going to come back to you later on because they know you care about them. They know you have their success in mind. And so I write pretty passionately around how I befriended the vice president of marketing to a chief competitor of FranklinCovey Vital Smarts. They're the fine firm behind the book Crucial Conversations. It's an extraordinary book. We go head to head for wallet share and budget and attention and time. But the fact of the matter is, I reached out to her kind of on a blind date, professional date, and it was a little bit awkward in the beginning, and we started to share insights. We never crossed the line. We never shared proprietary information. But as a result of these 25 meetings over 3 years, I avoided making a mistake on a marketing automation implementation that cost the company $250,000. I say it cost us because everybody's CRM or automation system that works with them is always their second or third. It's never your first, right? So we saved $250,000 by not buying the wrong one from her advice. And she had all kinds of improvements by talking to me. We never crossed the line. We never shared proprietary secrets, but the world's a small place. And companies are merging, and there's acquisitions and divestitures and collaborations and partnerships. The world is increasingly a small place. Don't trash talk your competition. Competition is good, like you say, David, right? It builds awareness. It builds demand for your products. And to the extent you want to or don't care about your competitor's strengths and weaknesses, that's fine. Sell on your own strength. But make sure you always have your customer's best interest in mind. It might be that you miss your quarter, but you'll win that customer's heart and trust for decades. And they will follow you and you will follow them. And I'm not sure you could have taught me this back in my 20s, because I was a very short-term thinker. I would do anything legally, ethically, to meet my goal as a salesperson. I'd sell a solution to a client that wasn't an exact match. I wouldn't sell, a cucumber to take pictures, right? I had a conscience. But as a salesperson, I was focused solely on me and meeting my needs and my career and my quarterly number. As I look back now, if anybody takes something away from this, I think great careers have several hallmarks. They're grounded in an abundance mentality, not a scarcity mentality, an abundance mentality. They're based on trust and transparency and vulnerability. You don't decide if you're trustworthy. The other person decides, are you trustworthy, right? You have to behave yourself into a reputation of being trusted by others. And then I think the last hallmark, I'm sure there's more, of great careers is you think long-term. You don't die in the sword. You don't win the battle, you win the war. And you're always thinking long-term about your brand, your reputation, the good of everyone involved. You have this win-win thinking. It's not a cliche. It's a fundamental principle that governs human behavior and relationships.
So good. So good. And it's not, you would think there's certain principles of life that are timeless, right? And so when you think about this, I'm reminded of the old Miracle on 34th Street story, right? I mean, it's like, we watch it every single Thanksgiving. And my favorite part of that is when, he says, listen, he'll get his fire truck. We don't have it here, but Gimbals does. Go over to Gimbals. And the sales manager's like, we need to fire the Santa Claus. He's sending, I'm sorry for those of you that I just ruined the movie for, but if you haven't seen it by now, and the sales manager loses his mind because he sent the customer to the competition to get what the customer needed because Macy's didn't have it. And then when this reaches Macy's like, oh my gosh, what a brilliant idea. Let's go and find out. Let's get all of the catalogs from all of our competition. Let's bring their catalogs into our stores, and let's forget about necessarily what we sell. Let's start consulting customers walking on our doors on what it is they actually want and need. And then if we can provide it for them, great. But if we can't, let's send them to the competition where they can get it and put the needs over our bottom line. Yeah. And it's such a brilliant moment that the customer in the shot says, I've never been much of a Macy's customer, but from now on, you have my business, because the best interests where it needs.
That's
so
right.
We've been told this story for decades, but yet our natural inclination is still to do the opposite.
I think for lots of reasons, right? Is we're incented to do the opposite. We're incented to think scarcely, especially in the pandemic. We're incented to think short-term in a public company that has pressure on quarterly goals and analysts and stockholders and shareholders and all that. And again, I think a tenet in the best relationships, a key tenet in the best careers, a tenet in people who find their mission and purpose in life is they think long-term. You know, it was Stephen Covey that said, most people uncover, detect their mission. And, you know, I'm 53. I'm not sure I know what my mission in life is or what my purpose in life is. I'm kind of detecting it and uncovering it. And for some of us, we have to discover it or create it. I was interviewing Stedman Graham, the famous author, speaker, philanthropist, the 40-year partner to Oprah Winfrey. He and I are very good friends. And I like Stedman's thought around identity. He says, you know, don't fulfill your identity. Because when you fulfill your identity, you're fulfilling what other people have told you you should do, but instead discover and create your own identity. I think for so many of us, we spend time trying to please other people, our parents, our godparents, our neighbors, our grandparents, our spouse, our in-laws, on fulfilling the identity that they have for us. Same with brand, right? Is creating a brand that you think other people are going to like. Ladies and gents, as we all have learned from the pandemic, life is short. And be thoughtful about your brand. Be thoughtful about the decisions you make that create your reputation, that become your brand. And maybe please less people. You know, be authentic and true to yourself, what your purpose is, detect, uncover, or create your own purpose. Don't spend a life trying to fill a purpose or an identity that other people place onto you, including customers, for that matter.
That is so, so good. And
Therapy with Dr. David and Scott Miller, live today.
Oh, what a great session. What a great session. I can't believe a half hour's passed by already. I want to talk for another half hour. We got to do this more often. I know that you're going to be here in the Detroit market in at the Purpose Summit in a couple of weeks. And I'm so excited that we haven't announced that publicly. I'm going to be announcing that after this live cast. So for those of you who just heard that, you just were privy to some information that's coming.
I'm going to board a plane. It's like a big deal.
You know, for those of them listening, I gotta say, Scott and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking through the 30-some speakers that are going to be a part of the summit and what's all going to be happening here. And he was going to do a virtual talk. He goes, "Why am I not coming into person for this?" And I said, "I don't know. Why are you not coming in person for this?" And he goes, "Oh my gosh. All right, I'm coming in person. I'm boarding a plane. My book launches. Your book, Marketing Mess to Brand Success, launches on May 11th. Which is the first day of the Purpose Summit. So that's an even bigger honor that on probably your busiest day of the year, you're going to choose to be here.
Well, it's first of all, I apologize for the background sound. We have construction upstairs and it's kind of a bit crazy. So I apologize to your listeners and viewers. And you're right, I couldn't be more, I'm sorry. I couldn't be more excited about launching Marketing Mess at the conference in Michigan. I mean, I'm bringing up some books. I think the audience might get a treat or two, so stand by, including the virtual audience as well. We'll take care of you, but thank you for the opportunity to join you today. Thanks for the invitation to come up to the Purpose Summit. I'm excited about it. I think it'll be my second flight in 16 months. You know, I flew like you 2 or 3 times a week a year ago, and I've not been on a plane in 14 months, but when you invited me to come up live, it didn't take me 1 second to say, absolutely, I'm coming up. So thanks for the invite.
We're excited. We're honored. I'm excited to have you here. I know our team is excited. Those in attendance will be getting some special treats. And then there's going to be some stuff after the summit that we'll share at a later date. But, you know, For those of you who have not had a chance to engage with Scott or read any of his works, I just implore you. All of his books are fantastic. If you haven't read Management Mess yet, you need to read it. If you haven't pre-ordered Marketing Mess yet, you need to pre-order it. If you're coming to the summit, you might get a copy. Just saying, possibly. It could happen. But Scott, as we wrap up here, before you get on the plane, before we see you in a couple weeks, for those who are listening right now, what is one last thing that you want to leave with our listeners today that will help them position themselves, their purpose, their brand, anything that is going to move them forward to make a difference in the lives of others?
Challenge 17 is hire people smarter than you. And I'm embarrassed to admit that it took me reading Liz Wiseman's book, Multipliers, which I think is a phenomenal leadership book, that I was probably too insecure as a leader for most of my career. And I unconsciously, deliberately hired people who I thought I could manage, control, that would not threaten my technical competency and such. And it really took me to a new place of vulnerability and even humility to realize that great leaders, great parents, great friends are more concerned with what is right than being right. That's an adage from Dr. Stephen R. Covey, of course, the founder of the FranklinCovey Company. Great leaders, great parents, great friends, great colleagues, great investors, great committee members, you name it, are more concerned with what is right than being right. So the next time you're having an argument or you're entrenched on an idea, check yourself and say, what, am I doubling down because I'm too embarrassed to cede some ground? Am I digging in because I just want to win, because I don't want them to lose, or I need an ego enema because my ego is so big? I think in relationships, when you ask yourself, do I need to be right, or am I focused on what is right? What is right for our friendship? What is right for our business? What's right for our relationship? What's right for our community? You might find yourself a little more willing to change your mind, willing to move off your entrenched position and be a bit more abundant. Again, common knowledge isn't always common practice. And these things that I'm sharing are just reminders of things we all know, but because we're so busy and in demand and distracted, we tend to forget them. But relationships are everything. It's all that matters. Maybe if you're religious, your soul, but your reputation and your relationships are your most valuable assets in life, and do everything to build and nurture them, including on occasion offer apologies that, with no excuses attached, that might require you to show a little more humility than you want to. But a well-timed, sincere apology can go a long way to building or even repairing broken trust in a relationship, including with a client, including with your brand, right, in every area of your life. Devin, thanks for the platform today. I appreciate you.
So good. Scott, thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your heart. Appreciate you. And we look forward to seeing you at the Purpose Summit in just a couple weeks. And I can't wait to continue to read more and more of your work. So thank you for being you and for all that you've done to make a difference in the lives of others.
Honored to be here. Thanks for the spotlight.
Absolutely. For those of you listening again today, Scott Jeffrey Miller, multiple author of the Management of Mess, Marketing Mess, Job Mess, the Mess to Success series. Encourage you to follow him, get his books, listen to the On Leadership podcast series, which is a fantastic series. And we implore you, take these things, apply them to your life, apply them to your relationships, apply them to your brand, apply them to your organization, and go and make the difference that you were created for. Till next time on the Finding Purpose LiveCast.